Were we able to get them?
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. The mic is yours.
Okay, I think we're all queued in. Well, happy Thursday, everyone. Many blessings upon everyone. We're so excited for this night of mastery and the government contracts and grants and mastery. We're so excited to be able to be here and impart some extraordinary information. It is my honor and pleasure to present our host, who is just a master of many, Dr. Stacy Lang, the visionary founder of Lang and Company, which we have coined having the Lang effect. Dr. Lang spearheads the Stacy and Company, just a powerhouse of strategic innovation and comprehensive solutions in respect to her company being able to completely revolutionize multiple sectors with cutting edge technology, strategic business development, and impact community initiatives extraordinaire. Under Dr. Lang's stellar leadership, Stacy Lang and Company transcends traditional boundaries, creating collaborative ecosystems that balance visionary ideas with practical, sustainable strategies for real-world solutions. The Lang effect embodies transformative impact of innovation, strategic excellence, and unwavering commitment to societal well-being. So that's what I read with. I read what I wrote with my hand. Now I will very quickly just say what is written on my heart about Dr. Stacy Lang, who is one of the most extraordinary human beings I've ever met. Her ability to be able to capture a vision and expand and execute that vision in dimensions and even visionaries are astounded. I say this in the context of having personally worked with and been mentored by Dr. Maya Angelou. I work with Ms. Coretta Scott King. I work with Winnie Mandela personally. So I have been surrounded by powerful women. When I say Dr. Stacy Lang is of that ilk, of that capacity, of that ability, she is indeed extraordinary. So prepare yourself, ladies and gentlemen, for the amazing Dr. Stacy Lang and to be impacted by the Lang effect. Dr. Lang.
Starting my video if I can. Wow. Your video host has stopped it. Can you let it come on? Can I turn my video on?
I don't know why you cannot, but
let me see. It says host has to give me video access.
okay.
And while we're working on that team, as soon as I have video access, because I love to be live and in living colors, if we can, we'll see. Let me move, but I don't want to hold us. But while we're working on it, let's make sure all of our panelists have video access if we can.
Okay.
Let me see if I try now. You cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Okay.
We have such an information jam-packed evening for you. So good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Stacy Lang, and I have the honor and privilege of being before you this evening as your moderator. And thank you so much for the phenomenal introduction. My key capital partner, Miss Val McLeod. When I tell you an extraordinaire, she is definitely one to be rivaled amongst many. I'm so happy to be armed next to her, especially when we're making a deal and helping other people achieve their visions and goal. I'm gonna try it one more time to see. Well, I want to do it one more time because I'm going to continue until we get that technology pulled up so we can get it to do what we wanted to do this evening and make sure that we have it for our other panelists. But I hope you all can hear my voice loud and clear. Ms. McLeod, can you hear me loud and clear?
Loud and clear. Yes, ma'am.
Phenomenal. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in and tell you. Now, what I'm going to ask everybody to do is grab a pen and a piece of paper and prepare to take copious notes. We won't hold you long. We want to get right to the information that you came for. As you saw at the beginning, and many of you know, put at the top of your paper, $1.7 trillion. That's T. $1 trillion that we're looking at. So tonight's presentation objectives is to provide you an overview of the federal landscape, okay, this funding. Now, we're not going to just read these slides to you, but I'm going to give you the opportunity right now, for those of you who can, feel free to take a screenshot of what resonates with you most. But because we have excellence coming here this evening before you, you're going to hear some words that resonate with you that are not on this slide. So I'm going to make sure that everybody has a pen and a piece of paper and prepare to understand, because we're going to provide the inside look into grants and contract management, including lessons learned, because we've learned a lot, and the elements of success, spotlighting the organization on demand. So organization on demand opportunity, write that right up under 1.7 trillion, organization on demand. And then we want to highlight the best practices for government contract management and how to overcome some challenges that many of you have had, that you've sought funding but weren't able to achieve it. Well, I want to tell you right now, you're in the right place at the right time. And I'm super excited to do just a brief introduction of the companies that you see before you. The JE Group, what an extraordinary consulting company, second to none, bar none, I tell you not, and Stacy Lang and Co. So I want to give you an overview of what we've done and what we're doing. You see, 50+ billion has been obtained through our organizations. When I tell you, I believe that collaboration is the new currency. Take a note of it. I believe it so much, I even wrote a book called Collaboration is the New Currency. So I'm super excited to tell you that collaboration between the JE Group and Stacy Lang and Co. bring about 50+ billion in federal funding in the emergency space. But that professional services, write that down, because you want to know about professional services and where that fit in for you. You also want to know about that 13+ billion that is active, ladies and gentlemen. We have been in this space over 50+ years with combined experiences of your speakers and trainers for this evening. We spanned over 44 states and multiple territories. My partners will tell you more about our extraordinary and extravagant experiences. But I want to give you just a quick overview on what the difference is when people hear grants and you hear about government contracts. You all, I'm a little animated too. So that, there we go. Hey, my partner is extraordinary. I'm telling you, I'm super excited. I hope you all can see me now. Let me move my screen. All right. So we want to talk about grants and contracts. When it comes to grants and contracts, there is a slight difference. And as you look, take a screenshot here, okay? Because when you think about grants, people think you got to be in a nonprofit, which means there is no profit. Not true. At one point, the NFL was a nonprofit organization, and I guarantee you there's plenty of profit there. So we want to be able to remove the myth and stereotypes that you all have heard and become used to and have become afraid of, and actually very familiar with that is not true. So tonight we're going to give you a nice quick snapshot of actual facts. This is an advanced class, so you may hear some things that you're like, I never heard of that before. It's okay. You're with the best and the brightest, so you're going to get it before the end of this hour, okay? So the financial awards that's provided by federal and state and local government. That's what you find in grants. But guess where else you find it? In contracts. The bottom line is that a grant or a contract require you to write an extraordinary letter of proof. I can do this service. I'm going to write a bid or a proposal for this service, and I'm going to do contract with the entity, fair exchange, for a fee. So we do a fee for service. That's what it is. So the bottom line is a contract, whether you're saying grant or contract or government contracts, because a lot of people think grants is some misnomer and you don't really understand. And even though I've done billions in grant funding, people still kind of get confused and they're still fearful of it. Now you're dealing with a team that has over a 98.5% success rate. Second to none, I told you. And our documentation beats conversation. So I really need you to take note and then write down any questions, because you'll get an opportunity to send those questions and get your answers directly on what's important to you. So make sure you take a snapshot of this page and understand that a wide range of needs from offices of supplies and the infrastructure project. My partners will help you understand what the infrastructure project means, because some people think, well, I got to have a great big building to get infrastructure dollars. Not true. Okay. This is the overview of the federal funding landscape. I want you to really understand, when you see all of these big numbers, they seem exciting, right? They are. But you have to have a system. You can't just, people say, I've been in this for years, Dr. Lane, and I just never got funded. I just couldn't get to the money. I don't know how to do it. I didn't know how to structure my program. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you tonight, we got a system that will walk you through, whether it grant or contract, in order for you to be successful. But you got to follow the system. So we're going to make sure that you get that training. Now, I go a little fast, and my team does too, because I told you this is an advanced class. And so we're going to need you to really absorb this, but also write questions down, okay? Because some people are thinking right now, what's the American Rescue Plan? Someone just told me the other day that all that whole 1.7 trillion that you see here has already been allocated. Boy, you wait till my partners tell you about that. Because I'm like, what? It doesn't make sense. Why would you say that? Well, the whole world is in debt, so how are we going to get funding? You're here tonight so you can learn how you're going to get funded. That's the overview. I hope you're looking at that landscape. That's the 2024 Consolidated Appropriation Funds. You want to really be able to understand the different levels and the different areas in which you can apply for funding, okay? So we're going to give you an overview of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. You want to understand that every bit of funding that you get, it creates what? A new job. How many jobs are you willing, ready, and able to create? And I want you to write it on your paper. If you were able to take your vision and your greatest idea and prepare it for funding, some of you all are ready. Some of you all haven't thought outside the box yet. But for those of you who are ready, write the number that you think, meaning how much money do you think it would take for you to take your business to the next level? And not just how much financial resources, how much material, how much supplies, how much staff, what else do you need? How big is your impact? That's what we're talking about here. Our business is impact driven. Who are you touching? That's important for us. We need to understand what your goal is. And you're going to understand when you hear from one of my business partners why we have to have your capability statement. Write that on a paper. You'll hear more about that in just a few minutes. Now here, I just wanted you to get a quick snapshot of the different areas. Now, when you see roads and bridges, do you know in the infrastructure grant, that's even including bicycle racks, as small as materials, packaging materials. For those of you who are working in the sustainability products and services, who are doing the green energy projects, who are doing buildings as small, and those of you who are doing, what is the one that we really working on for fitness and training and physical gear. We have some other people that working with us now that's bringing in their fitness and training gear. Do you know you can get a government contract for actual providing clothing? Some of us on here are already doing manufacturing. We really need you to understand that the government is looking for you, and these dollars are readily available for those who are readily available. It's readily available for those who are ready and available. Let me be clear. So I gave you my introduction. I told you a little bit about what's on the table with that $1.7 trillion. And now I have the honor and privilege as your moderator today to bring up one of my dearest business partners. And when I tell you, this gentleman has a heart of gold, he loves helping people, but he is super intelligent. And when I tell you, when he get into finding the money, getting the acquisition funds, looking at the procurement, looking at the contract administration, getting the job done. I mean, I have to bow to royalty. It's like, oh, he getting ready to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, Frederick Levy II
Thank you
is
so much.
our presenter for this next segment. You got it, sir?
Yes, ma'am. I got it.
All
Thank you.
right. Are you able to turn your camera on?
Getting the same message that you were getting there, Dr. Lang, that I'm unable to.
Yeah, Dr. Lane, you're the host now, so you can control all of the
Okay, let me,
technology. Mhm.
thank you. Let me see 1 second.
And what may have to happen, because which was my challenge, this is different from the regular Zoom. When we're in the webinar panel, you may have to release the hosting to Mr. Levy so that he can have command of all the controls.
Okay. And then he can turn his camera.
So
Got
now
it?
I am
There he is.
thumbs up if you can see me. All right, fantastic. I got
Incredible. All right.
you, Dr. Lang. Listen, based on your introduction of me, I thought I was on Club Shay Shay. Right? That introduction was amazing. Thank you so very much for not only your introduction, but in preparation for this meeting. To everyone, my name is Frederick Levy. I am an operator, a tactician, and a small business fixer. I do and have done government contracting since 2004, off and on, but with a real focus since 2018. My work has been in developing small businesses and preparing them for government contracts, from folks that are already in business, working their own plans, all the way to people that have great ideas, but don't necessarily have the administrative support. I learned my craft and began to hone in on the level of execution that the great Dr. Lang has mentioned from my mentor, Danny James, who is also a panelist here today. So I hope that I can give you exactly the type of information and knowledge that I have learned since 2004 with the great Danny James as well. So for my presentation, I'm going to be talking to you guys about the Organization on Demand. Our Organization on Demand is in place to help solve and ensure that small businesses are in the right place at the right time with the right material to get their contracts. We've done this across multiple industries. We have been in the transportation and logistics industry. We have been in the product industry, the service industry, professional service industry. So we have a wealth of knowledge on how to prepare yourself and promote yourself all the way through your end of contract. The way that we do this with our Organization on Demand is a 3-point system. And we're going to drill it down. As you mentioned, as you see here on your screen, you have a 10-step methodology in front of you. There's assessment, registration, education, market strategy, relationship, prospecting, opportunity response, performance, contract administration, and closeout as our 10-step methodology. We have done this, and we have labored over this methodology for several years. We have put this methodology in front of government buyers, from contract officers that have warrants that are funding and contracting billions of dollars in government contracts, all the way to CORs that are the front line for for those contracting officers that work hand in hand with service providers to execute contracts. And the feedback that we have gotten from folks that are on the government side, as well as small businesses on the public side, is that this is a very easy to follow, comprehensive way to not only understand government contracting, but also be effective in their own approach, the way that they make it theirs. So we make it easy. That 10-step methodology is what all OD members will follow. All OD members will be coached and developed toward each of those components. But for this conversation today, we're going to drill it down into 3 points. And those 3 points are our program focus, our agency focus, and our marketing focus, as what comes with the 10-step methodology with the OD members. And those focuses are easy. It's simple. For our program focus, which is our first focus, we look at the type of OD member, the type of client that we're dealing with. Whether or not you need a full assessment. We have a detailed assessment for how we go through and identify what you're good at, what you need to brush up on, what your company has a chance for teaming. The whole program is in our program focus. That program focus goes from the first 30 to 45 days, where one of our administrators really dives deep with the company and that company's subject matter expert or point of contact to make sure that we get all of the assessment details that are necessary in order to set your company up for success. So that program focus, we have to partner together. At some points, it's probably laborious, but we are really gleaning and getting the type of information about you and your firm that will be able to be replicated, whether we are leveraging it for a capability statement that we have to help build, or with a capability brief, or for your government contracting outreach. Once we get that information from our OD members, we tend to house it and secure it in our folders, and we leverage it over and over again. But we really focus on getting a refined amount of data from our OD members, so that we're not nagging and going for the same thing on several occasions. So that's our program focus. Next is our agency focus, and that's when we get a little bit closer to what we're all here for, which is providing services, creating jobs, and getting a high margin on the work that we do. So our agency focus is really going to make sure that our OD members have done their own homework. They understand all of the detailed information that we are provided to them. They have their own idea of the agencies that they want to work with. Maybe there's an agency that's local to them. Maybe there's an agency that they used to work with, or from previous time in the military or civil service. But we do a really good job of focusing on that agency, because that is the piece that will really drive the activity. And here's what I mean by that. All agencies pretty much get the same type of support, right? They need staplers, they need pencils, they need pens, they need computers, all the way to DOD that needs javelins, missiles, bombs, bullets. All of that comes from the public. Public-private relationship is real, and that's really what drives this economy. So when we look at the agency, we're looking at how often they are buying your product, your NAICS code. Who's buying your product, your NAICS code? What contract vehicles does that agency either own for their own government-wide, where they're responsible for it, or the government-wide acquisition vehicles that they are associated with where other agencies are the leader for that. With that level of education, it will give us or glean us the type of information that we use and turn into data. The data is the biggest piece for the agency focus, because once we focus on the agency, we will be able to drill down into those buyers and their small business reps. So with that information, with that data, we can approach those buyers and their small business reps with a zipped up program that gets us in the door, starts the conversation, and shows that we're here, educated and ready to deliver on the services that we know based on our data that agency is going to output for solicitation. Next is our marketing focus, and our marketing focus cannot be executed without that agency focus, and here's why. Your agency focus is going to give you a designation of how the agency really communicates. Some agencies are going to rely heavily on their small business offices to engage with their small business populace. Others are going to put it on their departments, their government workers, whether they are contracted workers on another contract to support that agency in the acquisition and procurement space, or they are just a contractor that's there for administrative support. These agencies have their own way for accepting appropriate level of marketing. Now, the reason why I say appropriate is because from my desk, I feel that, hey, they're government employees. You know, we reach out tactfully, and we're responsive and responsible for being tactful with our interactions with these government agencies. They have to answer, or at least answer in kind, or at least give us some guidance. So we're very aggressive with our outreach to these agencies in our marketing focus, because we have done our diligence with programming and agency. With all of that diligence, we zip up a package and we run our touch points weekly. So at any given time, we have up to 70 emails going out a day for one client, one OD member, for their set of services or products that they're providing to that agency. And sometimes your marketing has to be very detailed. So the details that we promote or market to those agencies is going to be based on the assessment. That's why we do so much diligence on that assessment, because again, we're going to reuse that information. And when we go after and market these contracts, and we do a very good job of that, the numbers that Dr. Lang spoke about are absolutely real. For some examples, right now, there is the CHIPS Act. I don't know if anyone is familiar with it. If you're listening to the news or following government contracts, for those that are in this space, the CHIPS Act is a very large contract that is attempting to bring manufacturing of necessary chips that go in all of your Internet of Things, vehicles, even the computers and devices in which we're looking at this event on. The CHIPS Act is going to drive the American way to those manufacturing. In order for the CHIPS Act to get down into that small business space and team with those larger Intels of the world, the NIST, the National Institute of Science and Technology, they have an IDIQ out, and they are outreaching to the public right now, from a medium business to a small business, to identify manufacturers that are already in place or developing plans to get in place to help with the delivery on a high goal of bringing back chip manufacturing here stateside. That level of support, that level of need is really driving the local markets. There's 6 local markets that the NIST has developed to outreach to manufacturers, get those manufacturers the appropriate amount of support by way of resources. And those resources can range from funding through grants or contracts Those resources can involve or include administrative support. Those resources can absolutely include the cutting of any red tape that small manufacturer is experiencing there locally. With that experience, I can tell you that there's a no holds barred effect on how the government is going to allow small business to drive that change. There's a number of different factors as to why that is the case. But in summary, I think it's really a telling fact that small businesses are performing better than your larger manufacturers when it comes to this space as it is right now. And I think that NIST has found that. I know that they've found that, and now developing that is going to be one of the biggest pieces for that agency, starting as of when they put the solicitation out maybe 2 or 3 months ago. Let me just caveat right there, because the data that we go through every day, the capture management, the business development that we do every day from behind our desks, it gives us or gleans us that type of information where we can just spit it out and just know what the tempo is for those agencies. There's another that I'd like to note before I open it up for questions, and that is for those more administrative and professional services support. There is a great deal of opportunity when it comes to providing the men and women that support all government contracts. And that can be by way of, 1 or 2 full-time employees, or it can come from, 10 plus full-time employees. The opportunity really pivots on how well the incumbent contractor is doing on that contract. In many cases, there's chances for improvement. There's chances for, an addition to what is already in place. And all of that really pivots on our ability to glean what your company does best and be able to build that into our marketing plans so that we can execute a proper organization on demand, our OD member strategic plan, to where we don't have to make any adjustments until there's a break in the system. And generally, we're not seeing any breaks in the system. Where we run into the greatest amount of kerfuffle is that pricing piece, that pricing side. But we have the right amount of support in place there to make the right pricing strikes so that you can get your awards. And we've done that over and over again. Let me just pause right there, if that's okay, Val and Dr. Lang, because I know that.
Incredible. Thank you. Absolutely. I told you all, I hope you took, as I said, copious notes in order, because I know you have some questions and I know you're getting a lot of information. And what we want you to do is screenshot and take note of questions you may have, because Mr. Frederick Leesby is deep diving just to give you an idea of what our day-to-day look like and what our system is, because the OD program is designed to help take you and your business to the next level. Mr. Levy, if you could give Mr. James the host mic, and as I'm going over this next couple slides, I'm going to bring him up so he'll be able to turn his camera on. Ladies and gentlemen, we write those grants and proposals, but our IT team is not on here right now. So we're navigating to the best of our intellectual abilities right now. So the overview of the Inflation Reduction Act, I just want you to take a screenshot here, because as I said, we go through different funnels and portals and ways in order to access information and funding for our clients and those who are a part of our organization, our consulting teams, as well as our OD program. That's where we walk you through the government grants and funding process. These 16 departments, agencies, and offices across the federal government will administer the funding opportunities included in the IRA. So that's the Inflation Reduction Act. So make sure that you just take a snippet. So when we bounce back and talk about the funding that'll be dispersed through production, investment, and other tax credits, the bonuses, the competitive grants, and the rebates, loans guaranteed, direct funding spending, the federal spending, and the corporate agreements. I want you to take a look here and see where does your program fit into any of these, because this is giving you an idea of that, what we call that bin of resources. Some of it is funding, some of it is intellectual property, some of it is actually you providing a product or service to the government. And you'll hear more about that as we bring up our next speaker. Some of us are using I tell everybody it's very important to go green when you're thinking about the energy credits and the eco-friendly services and products and services that we provide, manufacturing. We have some extremely intelligent clients and individuals that we represent. So we want you to not only just dream, but dream big. What is it that you can do? If money was not an object and it wasn't something that a hindrance, and you had an opportunity to work with the best and the brightest to help you get to the next level, wouldn't you want a Mr. Frederick Leach Beebe on your team? Wouldn't you want him to take you through your capability statement? Well, let me tell you, both of our mentors and our business partner coming up next is highly credentialed. This in the government contracting field and beyond, holding a DAWI level 3 certification, which is the highest level of contracting officer, and the Defense Acquisition University with a specialization in acquisition and procurement, ladies and gentlemen. Do you hear me? I said acquisition and procurement. Throughout his career, he has built and held significant leadership roles, including lead contingency contract officer and the I'm like, what is that? And the decorator of the contracting. And let me tell you, it says 22 years of military service. But I'm telling you, when he's telling us to get the job done, we still in the military service, because he's calling the plays and he is like, let's get the job done. Our lieutenant colonel is still in full effect, ladies and gentlemen. Even since June 2000, Mr. James was appointed as the director of contracting of the 3rd Army Central Command in Saudi Arabia, budgeting over that 48.7 million with over 1,100 in personnel. But what's really exciting to me is that he didn't stop. He continued on to right now to this day, with contracts exceeding that he's managed over 6 billion. That's just his own stuff that he's doing. I'm not even naming all the billions that he's already awarded, all the projects and companies that he's overseeing. And whenever I have a question and I want to get to the funding, and when I go to Mr. Levy, we go to Mr. James, because that's the man with the plan. So with no further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to you, Mr. Danny E. James Sr. Can you hear me, sir?
Of course I can. Of course I can. How you guys doing?
Phenomenal.
Phenomenal. All right.
Yes, sir.
I got a couple of slides that I need to share. Can I do that?
All right. I'll stop that share.
You will let me share, right?
Yes, you should be host now and able to share.
So here like this. How about that?
Perfect.
Okay. Are we sharing?
We're sharing.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I will not hold you guys too long. I know it's late in the evening and those of you that love Jeopardy and all those other shows that come on in the evening time, I understand. So we're gonna get through this very quickly. And I tell you, it's such a it's really great to hear FJ speak the way he speak, because a long time ago when we met, he's been around me for so long, is I really don't even have to speak sometimes. He's echoing some of the things that I'm saying. So I can really just skip on through some of this stuff and keep it moving. But I'm gonna highlight some things that I really want to just kind of highlight a few things. Dr. Lane and FJ has really hit on some key things, but I want to slip through a couple of slides because I want to make sure that we identify some areas that I think is so important. From an information standpoint, my military career has got me into the government as it relates to contracting. So I want to talk a little bit about, you really need to understand where people come from so that you can understand what they've really been from an experience standpoint. So my background consists of, from a transportation standpoint and combat arms. And when you're on the battlefield with the United States Department of Defense, you wonder about the beans and the bullets because you got to fight a war. And if the beans and the bullets can't get to you, then you got a problem. That means it's going to be hard for you to fight the battle. So therefore, the war fighters that's on that battlefield depends on acquisition and contracting. So I thought about this thing, but I didn't really think about it until I got off the battlefield. And as my military career continued, they offered me a position to become an acquisition officer. And you have to go through all of this training and stuff. And I said, wow, if I can assist the warfighters to get the beans and bullets, then that's what I wanted to do. So I applied to become an acquisition officer. And when I became an acquisition officer, you don't do anything else. And I felt the need to do it because of the warfighters, because I was a warfighter. I was on that battlefield, on that tank, wondering how do we get beans and bullets to the warfighters. So now, well, back then, I became an acquisition officer because I wanted to ensure that the warfighters got what they needed. So that's the relationship between being a warfighter and an acquisition officer. So yeah, 23 years in the military. I became a DoD contracting officer, 20 years as a government contract consultant, because when I retired from the military in 2004, I became a consultant. I started helping companies to do business with the government. And then about 5 years ago, we transitioned from a B2B, business to business, to more of a B2G, business to government. And this is where all the strategic partnership came in. I'll talk a little bit about that going forward. And then if you guys familiar with Georgia Tech Procurement Assistance Center, which is now called, there's another name for it. It's on the top of my tongue. But anyway, I've got a passion for growing small businesses into large businesses because I feel like they're the, that's our future. So at the end of the day, that's my passion. And of course, a passion for success. Now, what I want to do, I want you to put yourself in the mindset, and I hope, the people that's on this call could understand government contracting is a game. And I'm going to put grant on top of that. It's a game. What you got to do is understand, how do you play the game? If you can learn how to play the game, you will be a very successful government contractor or a grant recipient. All right. So a couple of things I want to talk through is I want to bring an awareness concerning the government market. What does this market look like? Dr. Lane talked about this $1.7 trillion infrastructure investment piece. this whole Job Act piece. I talk about that a little bit, and then I talk about a little bit more. I want to share some information about this game because it is a game, but you just got to understand how to play it. I want to talk a little bit about the set-aside program, why your disadvantage could be an advantage to your organization. I want to talk a little bit about the spending of the government. And FJ did a great job talking about our 10-step methodology from a strategic standpoint, because it's not about you just writing a proposal or responding to a grant. That's not what it's all about. It's more than that. So let's talk about what is it that you're going to do? What are the tools? What is it that you need to ensure that you can play this game? You don't go to a basketball game to play with the wrong uniform. You don't go there with a football. You go there with a basketball. You go there with your basketball cleats, your basketball shoes on. You don't go to baseball with a soccer ball. You go there with the right tools. So if you're gonna go and play this game with the government, you got to make sure you have the right tools, but you got to understand what those tools are. So look at it as a game, figure out what you need to play that game, get those, put it in your kit bag, and then get ready to go play the game. But here's the thing about it. There's some terms and conditions of the game. For one, you got to be committed to winning. You just can't say, you know what, I'm just going to step out here and jump into this game. It's not all about that. First of all, you got to want to sail to the game. You got to have the potential to sail to the game. It's not just, I'm here for the day and gone tomorrow. You got to have good business practice. And, one of the very first things you got to think about, you got to be registered with the government, and you got to be registered a certain kind of way. And in this game, as it relates to the government, you got to understand the rules. You got to understand what these rules are. So when you start talking about looking at these huge infrastructure, when you start talking about trillions of dollars that you're trying to go and get, you got to understand the rules associated with those trillions of dollars. So you got to understand the rules. So when people start looking at you coming into what it is they're doing from a government standpoint, they already expect you to understand the rules, the games. So do that homework first before you start stepping in there, right? No one says that you gotta, understand or repeat or recite the federal acquisition regulation. That's the FAR, or the DFAR when we talk about the defense acquisition regulation. No one says you got to be able to recite it verbatim. But everybody understands I could go to Google and put it in and put something in there and understand it's going to go in and do a search, and you can find out what's in the FAR or what's in the DFAR or what's in the CFR. But you got to make sure you understand the rules associated with what's going on with government contracting. So don't be afraid to open up the book to read and understand government guidance surrounding grants and contracts. You got to understand how to play this game. You got to have a viable business. You got to have quality product and service. Quality product and service. Quality product and service. I say that because people sometimes just have a product, but there's no quality to it. There's no, it's just what it is. You got to be able to deliver on time. Sometimes we show up to meetings late. Sometimes we don't put the quality around deliverable times. We got to understand we got to be on time. We got to have competitive price. You got to understand when you're talking about millions and billions and trillions of dollars, you just can't say, I'm going to go do business with the government without process, procedures, and methodologies, right? So you got to create and develop those. FJ said something earlier, 2 letters, 2 words that the government talks about all the time. It's being responsive and responsible. Now, we all look at the government and said, I reached out to the government 5 times, 10 times, 12 times, they haven't came back. Nobody said that they're going to be responsive to you, but you got to be responsive and responsible to them, irregardless, right? So you do your part. Don't worry about how the government do their part. They're the ones that's got the money. Sometimes you got to make adjustment. Whether you like it or not, you have to do it. Why do you even want to do this? Why do you even want to play this game? Why should you want to play this game? Let me put it that way. Nobody spends money like the government. Nobody. I don't care what they say. They talk about a shutdown. Every year you're talking about a government shutdown. This government shutdown, we all just need to go home. Trust me. So it's the world's biggest customer. And I'm telling you, there's nothing out here that the government do not buy. Nothing. They buy everything. They spend billions, and not billions every year. They spend billions every day. Every day they spend billions of dollars. And if you can figure out how to maneuver and play this game and get just a percentage, a 0.002% of what they spend every day, you and your family will live good for a very long time. The other thing about the government, that checks never bounce. I've never seen a government check bounce, ever. Something to think about, because it is the government, it's the US government. And there's a whole lot of things people think about when it comes to the government. It's the government. I don't want to do it a bit because it's the red tape that you got to go through. It's a game. You either decide that you want to play the game or you don't. Simple as that. And the thing about it, they're open to any and every business that's willing to understand how to play the game. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about this money. I don't talk too much about the money because I already know the money is there. I like to talk about the how, not the what. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the what, just so you can understand what that looks like. In 2023, the US government spent $9.3 trillion. 9.3 trillion. Where did it go? I have no clue. I have some clue, but I'm not completely, there's I can break this grants and fixed charges down all the way down to the penny as to where it went. But about $6.8 trillion went into grants and fixed charges. Now, the beauty of what Dr. Lane and JE Group is doing, she is phenomenal on the grant side. I feel that I'm phenomenal. We are phenomenal on the contract side. But there's more grant money out there than contracts. And because so many organizations and companies, businesses don't know how to go get that grant money, you can look at it right there. It goes right back into the system for the next year and the next year and the next year. Public-private partnerships, grants and contracts. She also talked about collaboration being the new currency. What we are creating right now is absolutely what so many companies need. The ability to be able to go after contracts and grants at the same time. Let me stop before I get on a whole nother world. But I just want to kind of identify what they spent in 2023 from a grants and from a grant standpoint. Contractual service and supplies, only about $964 billion, which is 10% of the total spending. I mean, we're talking grants and fixed charges of 72% of the 2023 spending. Personnel, compensation and benefits, acquisition and assets. You see, the numbers are crazy, right? Now, your ability to break that down to the last dollars is there. There's tools out there that can tell you exactly where all of that money is, because you got to understand, this is taxpayers' dollars. This is your money. This is your taxpayers' dollars. So there's so many tools out there that break this money down to the last dollar as to where it went, as it relates to whether it was a grant for obesity, whether it was a contract for ink pens and paper, regardless of what it is. Now, where are we and who are some of these agencies? 208 agencies in the federal government, 208 agencies, right? The Department of Defense is one agency. That's one agency. Under the Department of Defense, you have the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, so forth and so on. And in 23, the top 10 spending agencies, you see them right there. Defense Health and Human Service, HHS, $1.3 trillion that they spent. That's in 23. Department of Treasury, Social Security, Department of Defense, $786 billion. The Department of Veterans Affairs, Department of Agriculture. Now, what we're talking about in doing business with the government, and like I shared with you, the government will tell you how much money did the Department of Defense spend in janitorial service. You can actually find that out to the dollar figure if you do janitorial service. If you provided transportation service, and if you went to Department of Transportation, number 10, they can tell you to the dollar how much money of that $139 billion actually was spent in transportation, or whether it's infrastructure build out, regardless of what it was, because it's taxpayers' dollars. But what you've got to be able to do is be able to put your company in a mindset that you got to do the research so that you can identify what agency that you want to pursue. You don't want to shoot a shotgun in the federal government, because trust me, you'll be all over the place trying to pursue government contracts. The data and the information is available. You just got to be able to research it, identify what that data is, and be able to go get it. Let me get through this. Medicare, Social Security, National Defense. Here are the areas in which they bought things for various types of things. So now, where are we right now? Where are we right now in 2024? The government has already obligated $4.5 trillion for 2024. Now, we still got another, 6 months to go. Fourth quarter. We're about to go into third quarter, sorry. So yeah, we still got another about $4 trillion to spend going into third and fourth quarter. So, and then when you start looking at the government, we're talking about the federal government, we're talking state and local municipalities, we're talking about international across, various countries. It's all over the place, right? Now, what are some of the trends? Outsources is on the rise. The government does not do a lot of in-house work. They outsource it. They consolidate a lot of similar work. Multiple awards schedule contracts. A lot of set-aside programs. They do a lot of they mandatory subcontracts. Teaming and joint ventures, they look for it all the time. So position yourself to make sure that you're in a position to get some of these contracts. Goals, a quality product. I talked about that earlier. They meet their set-aside goals, their delivery on time, a competitive price. Those are some of the goals that the government is looking for. We talk about these set-aside goals, and again, there's a lot of information. I just want to highlight some of this because it is so important. These are mandatory requirements that the government have for the government to award. That means that they must award a certain amount to small businesses. These are just some of the statutory goals. Now, if I go back and I'm like 23% of the total amount that must be awarded to small businesses, you do the math. I'm not a mathematician, but I guarantee that's a lot of money based upon some of the things that they're asking for. All right. The president comes out here with these executive orders saying that certain things will happen. You have to pay attention to those things because you want to make sure that the government, you present yourself in a way that you are what the government needs. These are some of what I consider to be disadvantages, but you look at it, people got to understand your disadvantage is what? It's an advantage. Don't look at it as it's a disadvantage. Look at it as it's as an advantage, because the government has so many different things out there for you to make sure. This right here is just a quick understanding of what the government process is. Understanding how the government buys product and service is so important, because again, it's a game. They've got a system that they use. Understanding that system allows you to get closer to the contract. FJ has already gone over these 10 steps. And again, they are so important, because the thing about it is this: you can write the best proposal. Matter of fact, you can go get somebody to write it for you and they charge you all this money. But if you're not educated about that agency, you have no relationship with that agency, you've done no marketing strategy, your chances of winning that contract is maybe 10, 12, 30%, if that. But let me tell you, when you've done these pre-award all the way up to number 7, response, if you've done those, you've got a better chance, more like 85, 90% chance hit ratio than just going on SAMS, pulling a solicitation off and responding to it. Get educated about that agency. Register properly within SAMS, and probably register with HHS if it's an opportunity. Do your assessment about that organization. Do your marketing strategy, so forth and so on. He went through those, all right? Some of the mandatory traits: develop a strategic plan, be dedicated, be determined, be persistent, able to read and follow instructions, detail-oriented, computer literate, appropriately aggressive. Let me say that word again: appropriately aggressive. Do not be just aggressive. Be appropriately aggressive. That means yes, ma'am, yes, sir. But just don't hound these contracting people. Don't ask them out to dinner and lunch and all of that stuff. That's not the way you do it, right? And be passionate, like I am, about this whole process. I have no idea why I'm so passionate about this. But anyway, OD, FJ kind of talked a little bit about this, and I know we'll probably get into this a little bit more, but this organization on demand, this thing has been presented to the government. They love it. It's like Walmart. You walk into Walmart, what is it that you want? And I felt the need to create something where whatever the government wanted, however they wanted, through our strategic partnership, that we can create an avenue that the government can get what they want. So I wanted to make sure that we provide as much information as possible. And Dr. Lane and Val, I was looking at the time. I wanted to make sure that I got through this as soon as possible. So I apologize if I rushed anything.
You did an extraordinary job. You didn't rush anything at all. I want to thank you so much, because as always, I mean, the job is well done. I'm excited, everybody, and I see the room is jam-packed. And we had some technical difficulties in the beginning, but you just got the meat of it. There is a recording for those of you who are registered for this course. You'll be able to get the recording and review. I'm going to ask that you grab a pen and a piece of paper. Let me give you the email for you to get those other questions answered. I'm giving you just a second to grab your pen and piece of paper. I mean, did he do a phenomenal job? I know you all want to get in the chat, but we purposely disabled the chat because we really wanted you just to get the information, and we priced this at an entry fee, so there would be no barrier, because we wanted you to know what you have before you and to get yourself positioned to get into this funding. And did you hear him just say, we have less than 6 months in order to get, we have several people on here I know that's already in motion, but some of you all are wanting to join now. So look, DRLANG at jegroupllc.com. That's Dr. Lang at jegroupllc.com. Shoot me an email right quick. We'd love to hear from you. Now, we do have another opportunity for you to get training from us and our team later on coming up in this in the month of June. We'll get that out for those of you who are on our mailing list. You'll have it in time enough so that you can join in with us and get registered. Again, if you're interested in that opportunity, Dr. Lang, DRLANG, at the letter J, the letter E, groupllc.com. That will get you access in order for you to learn how to get started with our OD program, how to get your assessment and your capabilities assessment started, and how we can get you enrolled in our program. And some of you all need one-on-one consulting. All those phenomenal services are available to you from our extraordinary team. You just got a touch this evening, and that's what we wanted to provide for you. You'll also get a review form will come to you so that you can give us some feedback on some information you'd like. I know you want to engage or go a little deeper. Some people have asked, how do I register on sam.gov? What does that look like? How do I get my information plugged in with HSS? And how do I become a part of this organization? Well, we have the opportunity with an extraordinary team of individuals that'll be able to help you and walk you through it. I just want to, again, thank my partners, Val McLeod, Frederick Levy, the Danny James, and everyone who took the time out of their schedule to join us this evening. We'll see you soon, and we hope to see you at the top and not from the top. Thank you, everyone, and good night.